All right, SHRM 22, the Talent War podcast, and Guillermo Corea. I got it right.
Yeah.
I just can't roll my R's. The girls
Corea, Korea. Yeah.
They have been teaching me to do that. I can't get it. Old and slow. But you're the leader of SHRMLabs, I understand.
Correct. Yeah.
I didn't, you know what, honestly, I didn't even know that they had such a function in SHRM. I mean, I've been a long-time member, a long-time admirer, gone to the conferences. So when did SHRMLabs come around, and tell me about it? What does it do?
Absolutely. You know, and it's interesting that you say that because as the 22 conference has been rolling, you know, since yesterday afternoon, and especially today, because today's our longest day, a lot of people have been saying that, you know, like, SHRMLabs, what? I didn't know that it existed. Like, this is so awesome that SHRM...
Is this like the Black Works for creating spies in HR? What are we doing here?
Well, you know, really the reason why we created SHRMLabs was to elevate HR as a thought leader in workplace tech. Right?
Amen.
Because
thank you for that.
If there's anybody out there who should be leading HR tech, the future of work, it should be HR. It shouldn't be IT. It shouldn't be finance.
One would think that would be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It drove us nuts, and like we were talking right before I kicked on, is that HR is the table. And one more thing that we talked about in the book, and just to add to kind of SHRMLabs, because I'd like to build on these things. You know, one of the taglines we put in the book was, the only true competitive advantage you can hope to achieve and maintain is your people. And you've really got to be putting that into hyperdrive with SHRMLabs.
Absolutely. And I would say that, you know, so SHRMLabs is here to inspire innovation to create better workplaces, right? But we're also here to support, like I was saying, HR as being the thought leader around technology, right? And certainly, you know, when you take into consideration a lot of the things that are going on around recruitment and retention, right, which is one of the top issues that HR is dealing with, without a doubt, right?
Yep.
Then in order for them to become more strategic, they need to have the tools available to them. So that's where we're stepping in and helping. You know, what ends up happening is that you have these innovators that they see a problem, they jump on the problem, they think they found the solution for it, but then they bring it over to HR, and HR basically says, you know, that's not for me. That's not going to work for me. So what we're trying to do is to bridge that gap and get these people to talk to HR and let HR kind of like lead or help them cater the solutions to the workplace and the workers that are out there. You know?
That's cool. Well, you got a competition to do that, right?
Yes.
And you haven't selected the winner yet, or you have?
No, we haven't selected the winner, and actually that's going to be happening. The finals event's going to be happening tomorrow. So this is the second year that we do the Better Workplaces Challenge Cup, which is essentially a pitch competition to find the innovators that are solving a lot of the critical workplace challenges. And this year, we expanded it globally. So last year was the first year when we got going with it. You know, just because of everything that was going on with the pandemic, we said, you know what, let's just focus it in the U.S. But then this year came around, and we were like, let's go global with it. And we've been pleasantly surprised to see the level, the quality of the startups that have participated, and how, you know, workplace innovation is happening around the world. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we had companies from Singapore, Switzerland, India, all over the place. You know?
Wow. And, you know, look, I love my brothers and sisters, my HR tribe that I've been a part of for 25 years. But I do have to admit there's a lot of us that we didn't build it, we aren't going to use it, or we didn't come up with the idea. Give me an example, like last year, what were 2 or 3 things that were just like, wow, for the HR community that these innovators built?
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of the startups that participated, right, were focusing on the issues that they saw, right, because of what was going on with the pandemic. The beauty about our competition is that HR, because we co-hosted the events with some of the largest chapters that are a part of SHRM, right? Like SHRM Atlanta, for example, they produced one of the finalists. And so the companies that moved forward in the competition, they moved forward because HR practitioners were the ones who were judging them and basically saying, these are the workplace solutions that matter in the workplace right now. You know?
Oh, wow.
So we go back to what I was saying about that HR should be the one leading should be the thought leader around workplace tech. It shouldn't be IT, it shouldn't be finance, it shouldn't be operations, it should be HR.
I hadn't actually given that much thought, but when I think back over my career, everybody that seemed to have built something for HR didn't come from HR.
Right.
And, I think that was some of the resistance, that you don't get those innovators in there. But that's you crossing the gap and having people evaluate these innovators from an HR perspective. First of all, thank you, because I always hate getting a product that somebody said was good for us that doesn't adapt to the challenges that we're facing in the workplace. So how many, for this competition, for SHRM 22, like how many innovators do you just make the final cut? Did you go from 500 to 200 and now the top 50 are here?
Yeah, so we had over 150 startups that applied, right? Not all of them get in. There's a certain criteria that we have in place. Obviously, number one is it related to the workplace? Is it related to HR, right? I mean, if I remember one application that we got from a social media entertainment type of company, and it's like, why are you even applying for this competition, right? So that was the first criteria. But then after that, the companies that made it into the first round, they got to pitch in front of HR practitioners, and the HR practitioners basically attached a rating to them, and then the top two companies moved on to the semifinals. We had 2 semifinal rounds, and then the top 2 companies from each semifinal round made it to the finals, and they're going to be competing in the finals event tomorrow. And by the way, we're having 2 celebrity judges.
Okay.
One of them is Kevin Harrington, who's one of the original sharks from Shark Tank.
Hey, I kind of like that.
So we're excited to see him, but we're even more excited to have Cindy Eckert as one of our judges in there. So wow. I don't know if you know who Cindy Eckert is.
The name rings a bell.
So she's the founder and CEO of Sprout Pharmaceuticals, which is the company that came up with, if I can say it that way, the Viagra version for women. And interesting thing is that she sold it.
We like controversial stuff like that on the Talent World podcast. It's completely okay.
And she sold the company for $1 billion, and then the company that bought it didn't do anything with it. And so then she went back and bought it for like pennies on the dollar. And so we can't wait to see what kind of input she's going to have, because if I hadn't mentioned it already, the 4 finalists are all women.
Wow, that's awesome.
So women just cleaned house in this competition, without a doubt.
So can you give us so tomorrow you have what, 2 or 4 finalists?
4 finalists, yeah, 4 finalists.
And can you give us any insight? Are you allowed to give us any insight as to what those 4 are bringing to the table, or what general areas in the workplace are they focused on? I guess.
Yeah. So we have a couple that are focused on the diversity, equity, and inclusion side of things,
okay.
Right? Because obviously that's very important, because of everything that's going on out there. We have a couple that are, you could say, they're in the upskilling and reskilling side of the equation, right? And that's very important because of the whole retention and recruitment issue. One of them is from Mexico, actually, so it's our first international participant.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we're very excited about that.
This episode is sponsored by Talent War Group, a management consulting and executive search firm. We help you attract, retain, and develop your top talent, because we know that the most valuable asset within your organization is your talent. With services like leadership development, talent acquisition and HR consulting, executive search, executive coaching, and keynote speeches, we work with you to create talent solutions to your most pressing business problems. You can get started by finding us at talentwargroup.com and let us help you develop your next generation of leaders. Also, if you like what we're doing here at the podcast, please leave a review, as it helps us support and continue this podcast. It helps us support people who are really dedicated to improving their business skills and excelling above all else.
And so you have 2 celebrity judges. Who else judges?
We have 2 more judges that are from SHRM staff. So we have Amber Clayton, who's our Senior Director of the Knowledge Center, as well as Deidou Ejit, who's our Senior Director of Advisory Services from India. So she's going to be bringing in the perspective from, outside the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
Right, which is very, very important. And then our fifth judge is going to be the Chief Customer Officer of Sensia, which is the sponsor of the event. And her name is Tracy Tink. So,
wow. Nice.
So, yeah, we have a group of people that, have entrepreneurial experience and HR experience, right?
I would be, and when is this tomorrow? Because I want to go down and see the diversity, equity, inclusion. We just did a podcast about it.
Okay.
Love the topic, but it is something that people struggle with immensely.
Yeah,
I don't even know how to get my head around. How would you make a tool that helps? Can you give us any? I want to be careful because I don't want to blow any surprises. Well, this won't be released in a while. We won't blow any surprises.
Yeah, I mean, it really, and honestly, I mean, I can talk about them because I'm not going to be a judge or anything. I'm going to be the moderator. But if we're talking about tools out there that are used for DE&I, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's more about the analytics side of things right now.
Oh, good.
Being able to track the analytics, and that helps HR basically present the information to the executive team, to the CEO, so that people can see what's going on. That's really the first important step here that HR can take in regards to DEI. For people to really start seeing what's going on in my company. I was by the way, I was at a conference about 2 months ago where I was speaking with a consultant. And she proceeded to tell me that she was having a discussion with one of her clients, and they had no idea about diversity in their company. Even in their executive team, they had no idea as to how that was broken.
It was this last podcast, and this wonderful woman named Pam Owens, best consultant I know in the DE&I, and she told me there's now a B for belonging.
Right.
So now it's changing a little bit. But she said, everybody wants to launch a project. Everybody wants to have a program or a DE&I director, and we got to do these initiatives. And, she said the first thing that people don't do is, who are we? What do we look like?
Exactly.
And she said, if you don't know where you're starting, where are you going? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? So doing the analytics around it, I would imagine
the data.
That's
you got to have that data to be able to make the decisions. You do it for everything else, right?
Exactly.
So why not DEI?
That has to be I almost want to come down and see that one because I want to see how somebody can do it because most people won't self-identify. You get a lot of that in HR. That was my experience. Even I, as a veteran, I didn't want people to know, so I didn't check that block. So it was, all the different categories. So I would love to see how they're tackling that issue because it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Please come down. And by the way, so one of the other programs that SHRMLabs run is our Workplace Tech Accelerator. And for example, one of the companies that is part of the inaugural cohort, right, is a company that has built an HR bot. Okay, and so what that does, and I thought about that because of you said wanting to remain anonymous, right, and not provide that information, right. Well, when you're talking to a bot, you really don't have to worry about that, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It remains anonymous, and you're able to chat with the bot. You're not chatting with a live person, so people tend to be more open about the information that they want to share. So
that's pretty cool because HR is humans, but then you're injecting bots into it. So a little bit of a mindset change there for people, but doing it in a way that seems to make a whole lot of sense. So what are you most excited about when it comes to innovation in the workplace?
Honestly,
what's driving you forward?
What's driving me forward right now? At the end of the day, the stuff that's being built right now is going to create a better workplace out there. I mean, SHRM's mission is better workplaces, better world, right? So everything that we do is in support of that mission. And I think that when you look at a lot of these technologies, right, these are going to be the norms like 2, 3, 5 years from now. And going back to DEI, just having those tools out there that provide the analytics, the data that people can use to make the necessary changes are going to be great. I think some of the other tools around upskilling and reskilling, for example, of being able to provide people Like we have another company called Mainstay that is providing people a career path, right? And not just that, but then nudging them along the way as they're going as to, like, hey, here's this resource that just came out. You may want to take advantage of it because it's going to help with your career goal of becoming a CHRO, for example, right?
Wow.
Yep.
See, it'd be really nice. Mike Sorelli, my co-author, and I, we talked about in the book, and we talk about it in a lot of our keynote speeches, and we would do consulting. And this was kind of before the Great Resignation. We said, if you have to look outside to hire, and it's not necessarily new organic growth,
right?
Well, why aren't you looking inside? And the answer would always come back, well, they don't have the skills, they don't have this, they don't have that. And some of the learning
upskill them. Like,
I know. It's like you've already brought them in, they're already performing, they have the attributes, they have the talent, they're a culture fit. Why not invest in them? And this is the first time I've heard about a software or programs that will do upskilling. I got to figure out, that would take off like wildfire.
Absolutely. One other one that I'll mention to you is that, and this is a tool that I've yet to see, or a solution that I've yet to see. So 3 years ago, we came out with research, right? SHRM came out with research that showed that 58% of people leave their job because of a bad manager, right? And you typically
got the data, but we all, I think, knew that intuitively.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that you typically get people talking about I'm going to bring somebody into an organization that fits the culture of the organization, right? Mm-hmm. But I've yet, in 7 years of being at SHRM, right, I've yet to speak to any vendor or solution provider out there that can make that connection between the manager and the employee to figure out if they're going to work out, right? So picture something that, perhaps the employee is going through the application process, right? They submit their application, and then the next thing that pops up is something that says, hey, can you take this quick assessment, to determine if you're going to be a fit with the manager? Why not put it up front and just see if there's going to be that fit?
And you know what? It doesn't seem like a stretch because we have Predictive Index, we have Hogan, we have Caliper, Wonderlic, we have all of these assessments about the individual.
Right.
And most of those have a flip side to them. That people like me, I use those when I coach CEOs, I coach presidents. Okay, what am I looking at? What's the DNA of this person? These are those moments, I just said it in a previous podcast, I remember, and now I'm significantly older than most, they had ketchup in a glass bottle. It was like, why? And then the squeeze bottle came out, and you're like, why didn't we do this a long, long time ago? Right. And now you look at people who, you're like, okay, what experience do they need? What kind of fit are they? Well, why aren't we looking for the right fit for the manager? Because the manager's likely going to pick, I hated to use that term that way, they will most likely pick on likability. And then if they've, those things, oh yeah, they've got this school, they've got that school or whatever. Right. And you haven't seen that tool yet?
I haven't seen a tool yet that does that. It's kind of, think about the conversation we were having earlier, right, about Tom Brady. Everybody talks about Tom Brady and all that, right?
At Talent War Group, we truly believe that leadership is the single most vital factor in your company's success. There are many capable leaders, but finding the right one for your company and the role requires you to go beyond identifying a simple, functional, or resume fit. And this is what our executive search will do for you. We will go beyond what you're used to. Experience tells you where you've been, and character tells you where you're going. So instead of looking solely at a candidate's experience and the competitors that they've been at, we'll focus on their leadership traits, the optimal drivers for performance, and the potential for their success to determine who you should select. Because talent can't be seen, but you can assess character. We'll begin by evaluating your organization and identifying the success profile for that particular role. We'll help you design a process that effectively assesses the candidate's character attributes, those attributes that will help the candidate multiply success in your organization. We'll look at the team dynamics. We'll look at what's missing, what's needed, and what's been great before. Finally, once we find the right candidate, it doesn't stop there. We stay in contact with you and the candidate to mentor, coach, and develop, and to ensure success for the candidate and for your company. Yes, we're different. We know what drives performance. We know how to identify potential. You can get started by finding us at talentwargroup.com and let us help you develop your next generation of leaders.
But I think that one of the reasons why Tom Brady became Tom Brady is because there was a connection between him and Bill Belichick.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So Bill Belichick is the manager, Tom Brady is the employee. If there hadn't been that connection there, forget about, right?
Exactly. And we've even talked about on the podcast a number of times that the environment and all those things matter. So you could take a number 1 draft pick and you put them in a team and they bust.
Exactly.
You roll them to another team and they thrive. Yeah. Or vice versa. Hey, this guy's picked way down the draft and we put him in the bottom and we have a better choice of quarterback, but they're in the right environment and they just thrive. And so it only makes sense we would be doing that. This is another one of those moments where I do like that technology piece, and Nayar and Michelle over there, they are my technology help. They are, because otherwise the podcast just wouldn't exist, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I would love to see that tool as well, how they bridge that gap.
I would love to see it, just because I've been like searching for it and nobody has done it. Nobody.
I wonder if it would scare the managers though.
I don't know. Is that the same as so I have another crazy idea for you, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about DEI, right? Why not start Diversity and Inclusion Hall of Shame?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the most politically correct term that we would, but I like the idea, to be honest with you. All right.
I mean, you have Glassdoor, right?
Exactly.
That kind of does the same thing in a way, just, name it something different.
I think it's an idea that I would do, an idea I would propose, and then they would prevent me from doing it because they know I'd blow it up. But I do like that idea, because which companies, then you could look and say, okay, these companies are more diverse in these areas and they're performing better in these areas. You would get, instead of diversity because it's the right thing to do, it's diversity has a positive impact on the culture, on the performance, on the engagement, on all of those things. So it'd be nice for people to see with their own eyes, to our point about data, hey, the more diverse you are, the better you're doing.
Exactly.
Instead of, let me show you this white paper as to why you should do it. No, here's the rankings. Here's the Hall of Fame. Here's the Hall of Shame.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, not to just belabor the whole DEI issue, but forget about, put it to the side that it's the right thing to do, right? Let's put that to the side for a second. It's been proven that companies that are more diverse perform much better, create a lot more profit, revenue, whatever you want to call it for a company. So it makes sense to just do it.
It does, and we could go into hours and hours. And Mike Sorelli and I, we grew up in the military, and that's where our formative years were. So diversity to us was never a separate topic. It wasn't ever a topic.
Yeah, it just happens.
It just happens.
Yeah.
You're either a stud or a dud. You can cover my back. You can shoot straight. You're physically fit. You can help me accomplish the mission, or you can't. If you can't, you're out.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we did like to talk about was diversity of thought. And to the point about companies perform better, if everybody's thinking like nobody's thinking. And so the more diverse workplaces you have, see, I think it's common sense even without the data. You have a customer base out there that's diverse, using your product, your service, or doing whatever.
Yeah.
And your thought process has to reflect that. And you can't get that by having a bunch of guys that look like me, with gray hair, and white skin. That, if that's your demographic, maybe that works, but it's unlikely.
Well, I'm gonna give you an example for me, right? So a few years ago, I hired somebody at SHRM. She joined my team, and one of the programs that I used to run here at SHRM was these partnerships, right? And looking at what can we bring into the SHRM universe that we could then offer to our members that would be of help to them, right? It had never dawned on me that bringing in a service that would help new mothers while they're at the annual conference or one of our other conferences, right? To have a private room, it never dawned on me. And she like right away like jumped on it and was, but that's like what you to get to what you were thinking or what you were saying about difference, of thought.
We all come to the table with perspectives and ideas and experiences, and what you're trying to do is multiply that. You're trying to multiply the experiences, the different mindsets. Mike and I, we have this great phrase, the best idea wins. Who cares who came up with the idea? Is it working? Is it making us more productive? So you think you know who's going to win?
Honestly, no. They all, if you go back and you look at the semifinal pitches of the 4 women who are the 4 finalists, they're incredible presenters. We'll see here. The only difference is that they're going to be in person, live, in front of a large audience, as well as the judges.
Wow.
So we'll see how they're able to handle that. That's the only thing that I can think of that's going to throw any of them off. But
it's always tough in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
So what's next on the agenda? We'll close out with, what do you see coming down the road for SHRMLabs?
Well, I think that one of the things that we've been looking at lately is virtual reality and how that's going to affect the workplace. And for the HR folks out there that are listening to this, if you would have asked me 2 years ago, how's that going to play in the workplace, I would have said, forget about it. That's just like a video game or whatever. No, I think that we're definitely getting to that point where you're going to start seeing virtual reality really being used in the workplace. And think about, the hybrid workspace that we have now, right? Mm-hmm. You have a lot of remote employees who are going to need onboarding, for example, right? And as part of that onboarding, you're likely to do, a tour of the campus, So what better way to do it than just to do virtual reality and have people feel like they're actually there.
See, I never would have thought that. I never thought that would have come up. But, hey, I appreciate it very much. You coming on, spending about 20, 30 minutes. I don't know if I've gone over time, but it's fascinating. I think I'm going to go down and watch the competition.
I hope you do. You're going to be fascinated by these companies, I'm telling you. And definitely make it down to our Workplace Innovation Zone. Also, we have the 6 startups from our Workplace Tech Accelerator that are also fantastic, so hope you can make it.
I hope so too. Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate you being on.
Thank you. All right.
And thank you for listening to the Talent War podcast, where we discuss all things talent, focusing on a talent mindset, the core belief that the only true competitive advantage you can hope to achieve and maintain is your talent. Join us for the next episode of the Talent War podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you heard, subscribe and please leave a review. Connect with me on Talent War Group's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram accounts and send your comments and inquiries to media@talentwargroup.com. The Talent War podcast is brought to you by the Talent War Group, management consulting and executive search firm. We work with you, bringing services like talent acquisition, leadership development, executive search, executive coaching, seminars, speaking engagements, all to create talent solutions for your most pressing business problems. To get started, visit us at www.talentwargroup.com.